Today, kindergartners, you are going to make the Statue of Liberty. I am going to begin reading to you a story called A Home for Lady Liberty. This story is very interesting. It is called historical fiction. That means there are parts of this book that are really true, and there's also a part of this book that is pretend. I think you can already see the part that is possibly pretend. I have never seen a flying mouse before, have you? Okay, let's begin our story. My name is Jackson B. Hill, the 24th to be exact. I live inside the Statue of Liberty in New York City, but I'm not the first mouse to live here. My great-great-great-great-great-grandmother, Sophie Dubois, came to America from France over 100 years ago and lived in this very room. We mice know a lot about the Statue of Liberty. We've learned about it in school. We know Monsieur Le Bolet, whose idea it was to give the monument to America. We also learned about Monsieur Bartholdi, who designed and built the statue. But there was someone else who was there to see the statue grow from an idea into an international symbol of freedom. Can you guess who it was? Right, my ancestor, Sophie Dubois. This is her story. An ancestor is someone who is like your great-grandfather or your uncle but from long ago, and you probably don't know them. They probably are not alive. Sophie was born in 1859 in a big house just outside of Paris, the capital of France. She and her 10 brothers and sisters, along with their parents, lived in a mouse hole in the kitchen. Of course, with that many mice in it, the hole was crowded and noisy. Sophie would always escape to the quiet library, where she could read in Monsieur Le Bolet's books. He was the master of the house. That means he owned the house. One day, as Sophie curled up on the rug, reading, Monsieur Le Bolet himself stepped on her tail. She let out a frightened squeak as he plucked her off the rug. Spying the book, he exclaimed, "Ah, an educated mouse. Oui, the very best kind to have. Keep up the reading, young lady." And with that, he placed her gently on the carpet, where she scurried away, flushed with pleasure from his praise. From then on, Sophie greatly admired Le Bolet and would stay up way past her bedtime to listen to him and his friends talk about America and the principles of democracy and liberty. She was a smart mouse and understood everything they said. Well, almost everything. One night she heard Le Bolet and a man named Bartholdi discussing an amazing idea. They wanted to build a huge statue that would be given as a gift to America from France. Having learned all about America from Le Bolet, Sophie thought this was a splendid idea. Soon, Monsieur Le Bolet was spending almost all of his time raising the money needed to build the statue. As Le Bolet's friend, Sophie also worked hard to help make his dream come true. She collected spare change, made sketches of the statue, and visited the workshop where Monsieur Bartholdi had finally begun work on the great monument. Sophie was fascinated by the creation of the statue, which she named Lady Liberty. Monsieur Bartholdi and the workmen were soon accustomed to seeing her furry face peeking over the edge of the copper sheets used to make the statue, or scampering about with a rivet between her teeth. As the years went by, Sophie's brothers and sisters married and found homes of their own, but Sophie wanted to stay near Monsieur Le Bolet and Lady Liberty. Then one night, Sophie was startled awake by thumping on her door. She opened the door to Monsieur Fromage, her neighbor from a mouse hole in the pantry. Monsieur Fromage stroked his whiskers mournfully and said, "I'm sorry to wake you at this hour, my dear, but I'm afraid I have some bad news." He had come to tell her that Monsieur Le Bolet had died. Sophie was heartbroken. She's crying. Without Monsieur Le Bolet, Sophie felt terribly alone. She was very sorry that her friend would never see Lady Liberty completed. It was this thought that gave Sophie an idea, a scary idea, but one she knew she must try to accomplish. As soon as the statue was finished, she herself would travel with it to America. Although Le Boulay wouldn't see Liberty standing tall and proud in her new home, Sophie would be there. She did not know how far away America was exactly, but she knew that the voyage would take many weeks. Because the statue was not yet done, Sophie had plenty of time to say goodbye to her family and friends. It was not easy to leave your loved ones behind, but Sophie was truly excited about starting a new life in America. At last the big day arrived. Liberty was taken apart, packed into many crates, and carried aboard the ship Isère. Inside one crate was a tiny stowaway, Sophie. The passage across the Atlantic Ocean was rough and stormy. Sophie could hear the waves slapping against the boat and men shouting above deck. The rocking motion made her head spin and her stomach queasy. Perched inside Liberty's ear, Sophie felt cold and frightened in the dark, but she was comforted by the statue's familiar face. When the Isère pulled into New York Harbor, Sophie stared wide-eyed at the city that she would call home. As workers began unloading the crates that held the pieces of the statue, Sophie said a silent goodbye to Lady Liberty, vowing to be the first mouse to see her when she was put back together again. Making her way into the city, she was overwhelmed by the noise and all the people. She noticed cats, dogs, and birds from all over the world, dodging traffic and looking as if they were very busy indeed. Everywhere she turned, the sound of strange languages met her ears. For a moment she felt afraid. How will I ever make new friends, she wondered. Sophie needn't have worried. She soon found a hole in a hat shop, made new friends, and learned English. Of course she scoured the papers for news of Liberty, which had remained packed in her crates until a pedestal could be built for her. Over a year passed before Sophie finally heard the announcement. The tremendous task of anchoring Liberty onto her new pedestal was nearly completed. As she had promised, Sophie was the very first mouse to see Lady Liberty put back together again and standing tall on her own island in New York Harbor. When the whole city turned out to welcome Lady Liberty with speeches and cannon fire, Sophie threw a party of her own. She invited her new friends and put out plenty of sparkling French cider and cheese, for it is true that mice are quite fond of cheese. As she gazed at the circle of happy faces, the memory of Le Boulay brought a tear to her eye, and she raised her glass in a silent toast. "We did it," she said quietly to herself, and from now on Lady Liberty would stand as an inspiration to the whole world. Here's her friends and her party she had. Okay, so that is a story about the Statue of Liberty. I am going to show you something. Now, this is really hard to see because the page is so big. So what I am going to do is I'm going to move my camera over to the edge of my thing so you can see the Statue of Liberty, and I am going to point out a few things about it. So on the statue, you can see that there is gold, and this is real gold, and that is a torch. You can see the Statue of Liberty's arm. She has a crown on her head. The crown has 7 spikes sticking out, and those are for the 7 continents. She has a tablet here. It's like a stone tablet, and on it has the very first, it says 4th of July, 1776, which is when our country became we declared our independence, and that's, our July 4th. Here, her skin, the outside of her is green because she's made of copper. Copper is the color of pennies. and when it stands out in the weather, it gets all green. She is 151 feet from her base to the top of her torch, and so that's from here to here, 151 feet. If you count it all the way to the bottom of her pedestal down here, it's 305 feet. So that's a cool picture, but I want to show you another picture. This one is even cooler because it shows the Statue of Liberty, what's on the inside. So you can see that the statue's actually not like all filled in with cement like we think of usual statues. It's a thin layer of copper, and on the inside, this is a spiral staircase that you can climb up to the top, and up in her crown there are windows, and you can look out the windows. Now if you want to climb up all these steps, there are 142 steps to climb up starting here. But in order to get here, you have to start at the bottom down here. And as you can see, there's more steps. So when you start at the bottom, there are 354 steps. That is a lot of steps. I might have to do a lot of exercise if I'm going to climb all of those steps to get to the top. That sounds like a lot of work. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin our project. So the project today looks like this. So you can find this one when you're ready to start the project. It has the envelope and the green colored paper. You can have a trash tray. I don't think you're going to really need it very much today, but you could have one. Make sure you have whatever glue you're going to use, and if you need a glue tip. Okay, inside your envelope, there is one small piece. So don't lose the small piece, the small yellow piece. And then you should have 4 red stripes, this blue one, and our piece for the words, the sentences. So you're going to place your white square in a vertical position. So that's like a door, not a window. Let's see if I can get things straight here. I seem to be crooked. There we go. Okay, so the first piece we're going to use is the blue, dark blue rectangle. Okay, and this is to represent the water, because remember she's on a small island in New York Harbor. You're going to rip one long side, and remember when we're ripping, you want to keep moving this hand down, and if you rip a little piece off, it's okay. That went in my trash tray. So now I'm going to start ripping again. Ripped a little bit, but that's okay. And I'm going to keep moving my hand down till I get to the very end. Voila. Okay, this is going to go at the bottom of your white rectangle, and you can match the corners. So there we go. Matched my corners, and I've got my blue water. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to glue the stripes, and it's not the sky, but it's showing it's kind of like it's showing you it's like a symbol of the United States. It's kind of reminding us of our flag. We're not cutting these. The first one you're going to put up at the very top, and you're going to match it to the corners, right to the corners. Okay, now the next 3 you're going to glue on. I'm just going to set them down to start with. You're going to leave a little white space in between each one. So I think I'm just going to put some glue dots, and then I'm going to flip this over. So I've got a little white, And then I'm going to do my next one. A little white there, and one more like that. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is cut out the Statue of Liberty. And you have this green paper, and you're just going to start cutting out, and you can cut out, hopefully you kind of leave a little bit of the line on. You can see right there. Now, this isn't a perfect picture of the statue, but you can tell that's the tablet. And then I'm going to, cut it this way, and this is up by her crown. You can see this crown does not have 7 points on it like the real statue crown. This one has only 3, but that's because it's just trying to represent the Statue of Liberty. It's not the perfect picture. So these are something you can put in your trash tray if you have one. And then this is the torch. So I'm going to cut it, and you'll notice there's no black line at the top, and that's okay. I'm just cutting it off like that. And then I'm going to be able to cut this side over here. I was able to go to New York about 20 years ago with my family, and we saw the Statue of Liberty, but it was freezing. It was so cold, I couldn't believe how cold it was. And you have to ride a ferry if you want to actually go there. So now here's the tricky part. The statue has to have the arm on the left side. So you want to see your black lines, and I didn't do a very good job cutting this out because I went kind of fast, because you don't need to watch me cut. So you want to see the black lines, turn it over so now you don't see the black lines. And then we're going to add a lot of glue dots. I'm going to put some here on the end of the points, and then I'm going to put some at the end of her tablet. I'm going to put some here, and maybe one in the middle. Then I'm going to turn this over, and I am going to glue it all the way down at the bottom. So all the way down at the bottom and in the middle. Going to rub it down to make sure it's going to stick down. Okay, now we can glue our lined paper at the bottom, and we're going to glue it over the Statue of Liberty like this. Okay, I will post the sentences on GradeLink for you. And the last thing we're going to do is cut out her fire. Now, this isn't going to really look like fire unless you want to make it look like fire. So I'm going to cut all 4 corners, and then I'm going to magic cut. We're basically going to make an oval. Okay? If you wanted to make it look like fire, you could probably cut some triangles, and then we're going to glue that to the top of her torch right there. Okay, last thing you're going to do is turn it over and write your name on the back. That's really important, because when I get these here, I have all of your papers, and it's really hard for me to figure out if it's yours if you don't write your name on it. Okay, so check GradeLink for the sentences. Okay, have fun.